Hello students, we are now again in our new lesson, but before we go to our lesson, let me ask you something. What do you think is this? Look at your screens. What do you think is this? Do you know what this is? How about this one? What do you think is this? Kabul airport attack kills 13 US service members, at least 90 Afghans. Do you know what this is? How about this? Angelina Jolie blasts Biden on Afghanistan, says she's ashamed of his handling of withdrawal. Do you know what this is? And how about this? Japan suspends 1.6 million Moderna doses days after contamination reports. Anyone? And how about this one? China. Police arrest 10 kids, 18 adults in raid on worship gathering. Do you know what this is? All of these photos that you have seen in the screen are called news. And so today we will learn how to read news in English. Reading short news. Learning to read global events in the English language. So, how do we read news in the English language? I will teach you that in this lesson. First, let me ask you, what is news? Okay, in Thai it is cow. News is a new information, especially about recent or important events. So remember that news is a new information. New. What is new? My, right? It is a new information, and it's especially about recent or important events. What happens in the world? That is news. So, why do we need to read news? I have three reasons. First, it raises our awareness of what happens around us. If we don't read news, we don't know what happens around us. The only thing that we know is what happens inside our family and what happens in our neighborhood. But when we read the news, we can know what is happening in this country, in Thailand. We can also know what happens around the world, in the US, Japan, South Korea, China, and many other parts of the world because we read news. It also expands our minds and how we see the world. Expands. Why? Why does it expand our minds? Because there are things that we won't know about other people when we don't read the news. Because in Thailand, almost all people have the same religion. And so they don't, how about being a Muslim? Or how about being a Christian? You will know about it when you go to when you know news, when you go to the news in other countries. So it expands your minds and how you see the world. And when you read the news, it can push you to do something about it. So for example, you read news about COVID-19. What when you read news that the cases about COVID-19 is up, what do? You are more aware that many people are getting sick. So you are encouraged to put on masks or um, stay at home or be careful when with other people on the street. So it helps you, it pushes you to do something because you've read the news. So that those are the reasons that we need to read the news. Now there's another question. Why do we need to learn to read news in English? Maybe you already read news in Thai and maybe you think it's enough. But actually, you really need to learn to read news in English. Not just in this subject, but also in general. Why? Because many of the important news in the world are written in English. There are news that you cannot read in Thai or in any other language. Many of the important news in the world are written in English. So if you want to know what happens around the world, the language that you need to learn is English because most of the news is written in English. So you know now that it is important to read the news in English. Okay, so let us go to our lesson. So, how do we read the news? I will teach you how to interpret what we read. When we read something, we need to know how to interpret it so that we can understand what we read, especially the news. Okay, there are two things that I need to teach you so that you can learn how to read news. First is the parts of a news item. Whenever you read a news item, you need to learn about the parts. So let us see what are the parts of a news item. First is the news source. The news source is where the news comes from. Alright? News source is where the news comes from. Place. Place is where the news happens. Headline. Headline is the, uh, the title of the news. Subheadline is more information about the news. Date and time. It is telling the date and time when the news happened. News photo. News photo is a picture that supports or illustrates the news. News photo caption. It describes what happens in the news photo. And the news summary. It is the first paragraph of the news item and it describes in short what the news is all about. Okay, so let us recite all of the parts of the news item. First, news source. Next is place. Headline. Subheadline. News photo. News photo caption. News summary. Date and time. Memorize these terms because you are gonna need it in order to understand all news items that you're going to read. Now let's try an example of a news item and see which parts we can see in that news item. Okay, let's go here first. You see this? It says Bangkok Post. What do you think? Is it? What part of news is it? News item. It's the news source. Bangkok Post is where the news comes from. Next, what is this? It says Thailand. Do you know what this is? It's the place where the news happened. How about this? 14 new cases returnees from 3 countries. What part is this? It's called the headline. Alright? So remember this, students. When the words or letters are big, like this, you see, it's big. That is the headline. Okay? Now, how about this one? No local transmission for 47 days in a row. It's smaller than headline, but it describes the news more specifically. What do you call that? It's called subheadline. Okay, now how about this? It says July 11, 2020 at 12:45. What part is this? Can you guess? It's called the date and time, right? It shows you the date and then the time. July 11, 2020, time is 12:45. How about this one? Can you guess what this is? That is news photo because it describes, it supports the news that you see. Now, below the news photo, there is a small paragraph of words. What do you think is this? This is the news photo caption. It describes what happens in the photo. And this is the first paragraph of the news item. What do you call this? It's the news summary. The government on Saturday reported 14 new coronavirus cases, all in quarantine, bringing the total to 3,216 cases since January. That is a news summary. Okay? Do you understand the parts of a news item? Now let's try another example. Try to identify the parts. What part is this? That is news source. How about this? Christian mother of 4 in India was persecuted before her death. That is headline. You see, it's in big letters. How about this? It's news photo. Because it's the flag of India, right? It supports the news. Next, how about this? New Delhi. Do you know what this is? It's the place, right? It's the place. New Delhi is capital of India. This one is the date, July 7, 2020. And how about this? This is the first paragraph of the news. What do you call this? This is news summary. Alright, so this is another news item and you can see that there is a news source, headline, news photo, place, date, and news summary. There are parts that we cannot see here. There is no subheadline, there is no news photo caption, there is no time, but the primary parts are here. So do you understand? You cannot always find all of the parts in the news item. Okay? Now, how do you understand the first paragraph of the news? How do you understand this? Let us see. This is how we understand the news summary. To understand the news summary, we must find details that answer the WH questions. So, what are the WH questions? Do you know? The WH questions are questions like who, what, when, where, how, and why. There is still which, another WH questions. Now, look at this news item. The government on Saturday reported 14 new coronavirus cases, all in quarantine, bringing the total to 3,216 cases since January. It's the news summary of the first news item that I showed you. Now, what is the question that the government answers? What WH questions does it answer? Who, right? The government is the one that answers the who question. Next, what is the question answered by the word Saturday? What is Saturday? It's a day of the week. So what does it answer? What WH question does it answer? When, right? When? How about this? Reported 14 new coronavirus cases, all in quarantine. What question does it answer? What? It answers the word what, the question what. And this one, bringing the total to 3,216 cases since January, is more details. But as you can see, if we just find what questions these parts answer, then we will understand the new summary. This one answers the who question, this one answers the when question, and this one answers the what question. So that's the step in understanding a new summary. But there's another question. What if I can't understand some words in the news? Like, do you understand what government is? Or do you know what quarantine means? If you don't understand some words in the news, what is the step that you can do? It's easy. You actually do it all the time. Google Translate. This is not the most ideal or the most helpful. Sometimes it gets wrong. But when you only translate one word each time, you can do it. You can translate an English word into your own language. Just type the word here that you don't understand, and then you will see the translation in here. In that way, you will understand what an English news means. You understand? Okay. Now, let's try understanding the news summary in the second example that I gave you. This is from the Christian Headlines news item. Let us find what answers these questions. Okay, do you see? What answers, can you see which parts answers the WH questions? Okay, who answers the tribal Hindus answers the who question, right? What answers the what question? What is answered by persecuted a widowed Christian mother of four. Now we don't understand what is persecuted or widowed, so we need to go to Google Translate so that we can have the Thai equivalent for each word. When? What answers the when question? July 7, 2020, correct? Now, how about where? Where is answered by wilderness near her village in Chhattisgarh, India. So that is where. So do we see any other questions answered here? I think we cannot find why and how. Okay. Now that you know how to you know now how to read short news, let us have a speaking activity. Let us test your skills. In this speaking activity, you are going to tell the parts of a news item. So these are the steps. First, this is an individual activity. There is only one person. You don't need a partner in this activity. One person per speaking activity. Find an English news item on the internet. Using your laptop or your phone, find an English news source or news item on the internet. You can find English news in the following websites. Go to the websites of these English news sources so that you can get the news that you want to find. GMA News Online, Wall Street Journal, Bangkok Post, The Christian Post, The Daily Wire, Reuters, South China Morning Post, Sky News, Al Jazeera, The Times of India. There are many others that you can find on the internet that gives reliable news. Find an English news item on one of these websites. You can search these sites on Google and you can find the websites of these news sources. Okay? Next, read it and make sure that you are able to identify the parts of a news item. When you find the English news item that you like, read it and make sure that you understand it. Identify the parts. You remember the parts? Take a snapshot of the news item. You take a photo of the screen of the news item. Identify the parts of the news item and explain why. Tell what is the news source, the news photo caption, the headline, the place, the date and time, the news summary. And you will explain why. Record a clip of you doing it, or you can do it in Meet next session. Of course, if you will do it in Meet next session, you must open your camera so that I can see the news item that you have. If you cannot do it, if you cannot record a clip and you will do it in the Meet next session, you need to print the news item. Okay? You understand? This is your next speaking activity. Students, I will try to post an example of the speaking activity that you need to do so that you will be helped. You will get help in making the speaking activity. Okay, anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that this lesson has helped you read short news in English. Alright, goodbye.